Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sunny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart.
What happens if someone who constantly berates others for their past gets their own problems exposed? That's exactly what happened when Sunny Hostin was presented with a truth bomb for which even she was unprepared. Sunny has been well known for years for discussing racism, injustice, and reparations. She is quick to point the finger at others for historical injustices and never backs down from speaking out against bigotry. But when she decided to utilize Finding Your Roots to investigate her own ancestry, she was amazed by the results. Sunny Hostin discovered her own ancestors were slave owners.
What I found out was that my mother's family, while they are Puerto Rican, they actually originate from Spain. And the reason that they moved to Puerto Rico is because the slave trade had been sort of canceled in Spain and then Curacao, and then they moved all of their slaves to Puerto Rico. And so the family business, I had been told that they were printers and journalists, but they were in fact enslavers.
The same person who often speaks about privilege and injustice had to face the disturbing fact that her own family had a direct hand in the history she criticizes. It was so ironic that you would think it was a rehearsed occurrence. Sunny said as she sat there that she had always identified as Puerto Rican and had never believed her family had a history of slavery or Spanish lineage.
Wow, I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that, and I think it's great for our children.
By often discussing issues like systemic injustice, reparations, and the history of slavery, Sunny Hostin has solidified her reputation as an ardent advocate for social justice. As a co-host of The View, she never holds back when criticizing people she believes are benefiting from past injustices. When she enrolled in Finding Your Roots, she thus expected to learn about a history of persecution and survival, as this would bolster the stories she tells. But let's just say that the results fell short of her expectations.
She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe.
Inquiring about Sunny, Hostin's family background, Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr. sat across from her. As he flipped through the pages of her family history, she was completely shocked by what he revealed. Her forebears weren't all downtrodden. They had slaves. Indeed, precisely. The same person who has spent years demanding accountability for historical wrongs had to confront the fact that her own family was intimately complicit in the system she criticizes.
I love it when a woman says she knows how other women think, okay? And I hate it when they actually do a divide like that. But you know, if Sunny Hostin thinks that we're all protecting white men and the white patriarchy and that we can't think for ourselves, I wonder why it is that she is capable of thinking for herself. But I'm not going to go there.
Despite her tendency to see herself through the lens of struggle, Sunny was obviously afraid. She has always identified as Afro-Latina and publicly celebrated her Dominican and Puerto Rican heritage. But this finding completely upended everything. Her family came from Spain, where they both actively participated in and benefited from slavery. This connection was more than just distant. Her forebears benefited from the injustice she so fiercely rejects. The issue is that Sunny has never held back when exposing those who have been linked to slavery in this manner. She has presented a compelling argument for holding descendants of enslavers responsible for the wealth and privileges they have received. But now she found herself in a precarious position. At first, Sunny was completely caught off guard. She staggered, trying to process the information. She was expecting a story of persecution rather than luxury. She was clearly uneasy and no longer radiated her usual confidence. And rather than face the blatant irony of the situation, she tried to downplay it. Now let's be truthful. If it had been someone else, Sunny wouldn't have let them get away with it so easily. For years, she has been asking people about their family backgrounds and pressuring them to acknowledge their privilege. Yet at this moment, she seemed more interested in denying her own history than in openly discussing its ramifications. Sunny apparently didn't want to subject herself to the same standards as someone who demands accountability from others, but Greg Gutfeld was the one person who would not let Sunny get away with it. The hypocrisy was promptly revealed by the Fox News host, and he did it in a way that was uniquely Gutfeld.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions?
Yeah.
Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist.
In his statement on The Five, Gutfeld not only denigrated Sunny, but also utterly dismantled her argument. Using one of his trademark one-liners, he set the tone immediately. This is like discovering a vegan secretly owns a barbecue joint. These panel erupted in laughter, and that was just the beginning. Gutfeld went on to ridicule the situation, pointing out that Sunny had been giving lectures on race for years, only to find out that her own family history contradicted all of her beliefs. He cynically said, "At least we're not slave owners, Sunny." His co-hosts couldn't keep their feelings in check. Jesse Waters, who enjoys calling out hypocrisy, smirked. Donna Perino smiled, and Janine Pirro shook her head incredulously. They all took turns pointing out how ridiculous everything was, and Sunny had obviously walked right into this one. But what really made Gutfeld's argument so strong was his exposure of the double standard. He reminded everyone that Sunny had brought attention to historical injustices and stressed the importance of people acknowledging the past. But when the truth about her own history came out, she made an effort to act as if it didn't matter.
She just didn't want to upset her husband by saying her husband makes her do everything, and then she'd have to accuse him of being a racist. Because if he told her that this is what white women do, then he's a racist.
Greg not only exposed her hypocrisy, but also utterly dismantled it. Additionally, Sunny's experience was made even worse by the reaction on social media. After the publication of the video, people wasted little time in attacking Sunny. "Don't say it if you can't take it back the way it's given," one person stated. "Glass houses don't throw stones." Another added, "Thank you, Greg, for exposing her hypocrisy." Some even called it the biggest cell phone in TV history, while others deemed it poetic retribution after all of her moral grandstanding over the years. But it was more than memes. She was receiving a lot of criticism. Viewers who had previously been supportive began to question if she would continue to hold herself to the same standards. Some even asked if she would reconsider reparations now that she was personally involved in the issue.
Guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living.
Greg Gutfeld wrapped up his critique with a final mic drop, highlighting a point that transcended Sunny Hostin's hypocrisy. The whole affair, he said, is a classic example of how dangerous identity politics can be. It's just a matter of time before people's overemphasis on race and heritage backfires, as it did with Sunny. He reminded everyone that history is messy and that no one has a perfect past. Trying to hold someone accountable for the wrongdoings of their ancestors is risky because you could later discover that members of your own family were complicit. That's what Sunny went through. Instead of using it as an opportunity for reflection, she chose to avoid facing the reality of her own rhetoric. But the key takeaway from this is simple. After all, it has nothing to do with your ancestors. It's about what you're doing right now. No one can choose their family's history, but they can choose their future. If Sunny has spent years expecting people to take responsibility, shouldn't she hold herself to the same standard? So what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you don't want to miss out on the hottest celebrity news, make sure to subscribe to Daily Finder.